Yes, people, welcome back to Thai Sports. Another day, another stream. And today it's actually a special one. We've got an exclusive here with Nathan Salt, sports reporter for Manchester United, covering it for the Daily Mail. Nathan, thank you for joining me, first of all. Great guy. We're just chatting backstage and stuff. Wrexham fan, of course, as well. So, thank you for joining me, first of all.
Well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Guys, make sure you check out Nathan Salt. I will plug his stuff at the end on Twitter and stuff, and you can follow all the articles he posts and so forth. But of course, it's transfer window. People, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, get your comments in after as well with your feedback. And hopefully we could just bring you some news on what the current situation is with Manchester United at the moment. Of course, it's the 27th of January. We've got 4 days left in the window. I'm a Man United fan, as you guys all know, and we haven't had any big major incomings, no major outgoings, and we're going to talk about it. So I think, first of all, guys, like I said, smash the like, subscribe if you're new. We are going to talk about Marcus Rashford, I think, firstly, to start off. Big topic, Nathan, at the moment. It's been going on since Amorim, probably about a month after Amorim arrived. You thought it was going to go quite well, see him get a couple of goals and play well against Everton, which I think is one of Man United's best displays at home so far since Amorim come in. But since then, something's just not clicked. Rashford's not seeming that happy with his body language. Amorim's already, called him out, which we'll touch on definitely. But what's the latest of Marcus Rashford at the moment? Obviously, a few days left in the window. Is it likely that Manchester United are going to see him depart the club?
I think it's imperative that he leaves the football club this month, actually. I think it's imperative for him and the football club. I wrote in a column on Monday that, to me, the way I look at that situation, I wasn't massively surprised that Amorim went so hard again in press conferences. He is known now to, I think he's already figured out the English media, and he knows how to nail the headline first time, which is great news. Brilliant. Which is great news for us. Yeah. But the way I look at it, I see Rashford to Amorim like I saw Ronaldo to Ten Hag. It's a huge line in the sand in the dressing room. A massive figure that has been synonymous with the club for well over a decade.
Been through a number of managers: Van Gaal, Mourinho,
exactly. But he's such a part of the institution, come through the academy, and people really want him to do well. I just think where Ten Hag was back to get rid of Ronaldo, which again, one of the great players in the history of the football club. The same needs to be done now. And I think, in fairness, the ownership are leaving it to Amorim. He doesn't want to use Marcus Rashford. He's made that quite clear, abundantly clear, in the fact that he'd rather play a 63-year-old goalkeeping coach who is not in his physical prime, let's say. No knock on Jorge Vital, but he's not in his physical prime.
He's probably better playing with the grandkids, to be fair, in the living room.
He'll probably put more of a shift in. That's the problem. And look, the more people you speak to that work with him at Sporting, and if you go back even further, who played alongside him at Benfica, he is huge on standards and effort. And I think we'll get on to Garnacho in a little bit, but I do think that is why you've seen, since they both got
the difference,
dropped from I think one's sort of really been on the decline, and one's kind of got stuck in and giving himself a fighting chance.
Oh, you got mute. Your mic's muted. Oh. Yeah, just unmute on. Yeah, that's all right, mate.
Sorry, mate.
That's all right.
We good?
We're good. All good. Yeah.
There you go. Rashford. Then I would say the big problem is that contract. Is that is that huge contract, £320,000 a week. Now I spoke to somebody at Borussia Dortmund, and they were really keen for Marcus Rashford. They got rid of Donyell Malen. I say got rid of. He ended up leaving, coming to England, gone to Aston Villa. And the person who I spoke to at Dortmund said, we want a different profile of player to Malen, who wants to maybe play more of a 9 and come inside. And we want more of a wide player. And I think they were referencing, in particular, Rashford's performance away at Porto. I was there watching that. And I remember being staggered at the time when Rashford was taken off at half time.
So was I.
And, everybody was kind of like, I don't get it. Rotation, what is he on about? That didn't make a lot of sense for when it was Ten Hag, obviously, at this point. But we watched. That was one of, I think, Rashford's best performances
Better game
in
this
a long
season.
while. Yeah,
Mm.
one of his best games. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes with Rashford that is not out there. And I'm not going to be the person that knows everything when it comes
Yeah,
to
of course.
Rashford, but there's more to it than
Yeah.
just
It
some
feels
poor
like there's a
training
lot going on
sessions.
in his mind at the moment.
And dare I say, you need a fresh start now and again. You look at others that have left, and you go away from that Man United spotlight, and Man United need that, because if they can't move him, and Barcelona is the one now that, can he just drop his wage demands, get to Barcelona? It's a huge football club, a fresh start over there, and okay, it would generate plenty of headlines initially, but soon, the eye would drift, and it would be back on the Premier League, and he would be able to sort of crack on with trying to play well in Spain. But for him, it just depends. Does he want to sort of sit around and make life very uncomfortable for Ruben Amorim, because it's at a point where Man United do not create many chances, do not score many goals, and there's a bloke there who cannot get on the bench, who everyone will go back to the fact he scored that 30-goal season, when your options are Højlund and Xerxes.
And Amorim made a point to it. I could have done with him on the bench yesterday for the pace and differentiation.
Exactly. Yeah. But he is not going to compromise his principles. I think he would rather fall on the sword and say, look, if these are the only options we've got, that is all I can go with, because if I compromise now, we're done for, basically.
And it shows a lot to the other players as well. I think him standing firm in his principles and showing there's no favoritism, which a lot of fans have said, there has been favoritism over the years. I think it sets a precedent for players coming in, players leaving the club, players currently here, the youth set up. And it's like, right, this club needs to be filtered out. People have moaned about problems at Manchester United for a long time, top to bottom. You need the manager to come in and nail his part of it, because once he does change, you've kind of lost that percentage of trust elementally. And that's how I look at it with Amorim. And I think he's standing firm. And with Rashford, obviously, like you mentioned, Borussia Dortmund, struggling a little bit in Bundesliga this year. They're not having the strongest of seasons. Donyell Malen's now left the club. With Barcelona, big pitch. I think Spain would suit him in the wide areas. Obviously, you've got Lamine Yamal on the right. You've got Rafinha, Dani Olmo. You've got he scored last night. Scored a double in the number 10 role. They played against Valencia. My brain's gone blank. Not Ferran Torres. The Fermin Lopez. There we go. Got Fermin Lopez. So when you look at the wide areas for Barcelona, there is room for a Marcus Rashford. Ansu Fati's not been the same since he's come back from Brighton with the ligament injuries. What's the likelihood, do you think, of a Barcelona or a Borussia Dortmund making a serious move before this window closes and Rashford actually leaving?
Dortmund, I think, are going to struggle just because from what I gather, they cannot get the numbers to work. They've tried. They really have tried for most of this window to figure out a way to get Marcus Rashford, because they've had great success. They got a tune out of Jadon Sancho and went all the way to the UEFA Champions League final. They've had great success in terms of getting players out of England and turning them around. I mean, they took Banu Gittins, a different situation in terms of a young player, but he's rocketed in value, and they obviously believe that Rashford could do similar, but the numbers just don't make sense there for them. Again, I'd be curious now just to see, because Rashford trained on Monday as normal, and from you speak to people close to him, and they say, look, he wants another shot. He's training. He's trying to turn it around. And that's the really curious thing, is that after that really damning assessment from Ruben Amorim, whether he goes, what, in his mind, he might think he is giving 100% in training, and he goes, what, if I'm trying to be fair, he might go, I have tried to reintegrate myself, and I'm just not going to get a fair crack of the whip under this manager. He's just decided, if I'm playing sort of Rashford side of things, he might go, look, like I'm never going to get a shot here. And he's got to look at it, and he wants to play for England again. That's part of the reason why he doesn't want to go to Saudi Arabia.
My next point, I was going to say, how important is it with the World Cup in 18 months? Or
it's key. So you'll see if the World Cup really does mean a lot to him, and getting into that England team really means a lot to him, he will do whatever it takes to leave this month, and that will mean taking less money. That will mean going to a situation that maybe isn't the most glamorous.
What his career needs mentally, refresh, recharge, and enjoy yourself, because it's short career football. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I'm in
yeah.
agreement with you. I think Dortmund would be a good move, but I also think Barcelona, with what they're competing for, still in the Champions League, 7 points off Real Madrid at the moment, but they're still going to push hard, and just get a smile on your face, Marcus Rashford. Funny enough, I'm actually from my background, St. Kitts and Nevis, which is the same as him, and I would say, look, despite me as a Man United fan wanting Rashford to leave, it's not because I think he's a bad player. I just think he's come to a halt at Manchester United, and sometimes you need a refresh, you need a new approach, just to go again, show that hunger and desire. And it just happens at the end of the day that you can't be at a football club forever. You might want to be, but you're going to be 30, you're going to be 28 this year, and before you know it, you're 29 and you're 30, and time has flown just like that. So yeah, let's see what happens with Marcus Rashford. Very interesting. Obviously, the other attacker that is on the lips at the moment is an attacker that's playing. Argentinian Alejandro Garnacho, linked with a move to Chelsea, linked with a move to Napoli. This one seems a bit more concrete in terms of he's not pushing for a move, but Garnacho has been strongly linked with a move to Napoli, strongly linked with a move to Chelsea. A bid hasn't or has come in yet. I'll let you talk on that. But the interesting part for me with Garnacho is, will Manchester United sell this player with 4 days to go? But the flip side of it is Amorim showing that, okay, he's linked with a move away, but he's dedicated, he's training hard, and he's starting games. So it's not like he's been frozen out. He's showing that, okay, if I don't move, I'm still going to give 100% for the football club. And this is the bit where I am struggling to understand the situation, because he is playing. He's given 100%. Amorim's not had no complaints. But then you've got Chelsea and Napoli that, again, today are strongly linked, especially Napoli reopening talks potentially. What's the latest on Garnacho?
Yeah, look, Man United's entire January transfer window largely hinges on the sale of Alejandro Garnacho. If Man United want to do any business, they need to sell Alejandro Garnacho. But the flip side of that is, do you sell a high potential player to a rival like Chelsea? Or Napoli is obviously a more ideal situation if you are to sell, because it doesn't really have any sort of direct impact on you. But you've seen United have been burned by the sale of Scott McTominay, who, if Scott McTominay did not play for Manchester United before, he would be a player that the fans would undoubtedly say he'd be great. He would be great in our midfield, right? So, you'd be looking at going, look at this guy in Serie A who's ripping it up. Yeah. Exactly. You could see you could see all the tweets now saying that this guy is amazing, and the compilation doing the rounds. So you do have to be a little bit wary of that. But Man United are in a tough situation. They need to sell. People want Dorgu and they want a striker. Man United's, profit and sustainability rules, PSR, that they need to sell to buy. And look, that you speak to people at the club, they say that Amorim was well aware of the conditions that he joined under, that he was going to have to coach performances out of players already there. He was going to have to work with what he's got for the most part. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why he hasn't gone so big on the academy, because he needs to spend as much time as he can with those that that he is working with. He's trying to almost condense the number of players he's using down to really invest in those and develop those with what little training sessions he has. Garnacho is a really funny one that I wrote about recently, in that it was the story goes that Erik ten Hag used to have players arrive about 8:45 in the morning. Amorim changed that, so the schedule was about 9:45, and because Garnacho's just a creature of habit, he turns about 8:45 every day. So he just stuck to the same routine because he had great success under Ten Hag. But there was a game recently where I watched Garnacho in that number 10 role. I think was it against Southampton. They all sort of blur into one these games now, but I think it might have been Southampton. And I just remember watching Garnacho drift out to the left, and you could see Amorim straight out, barking orders to come back in. And then you saw Garnacho constantly looking back to the bench just to get reassurance that he was in the right position.
Right areas.
And that's really hard for a player that operates largely on instinct. You saw one moment at Fulham. Okay, he wasn't spellbound all night, but you saw that one moment where he did just do somebody on the wing.
Castagna,
maybe Castagna. Yeah, thanks, Castagna. So just did him with ease, and you think that is what he is good at. And if he went to Napoli, he would replace Kvaratskhelia in a front three, in a 4-3-3 on the left. That'd be a perfect role for him. Chelsea, I mean, do they really need another left winger? They're about to pay Man United 25 million in the summer for Jadon Sancho. Do you need another? The Mudryk situation's interesting.
Yeah.
I would be loath to sell Garnacho because I think he is trying to adapt and he does have talent. But you have to look at it and go, if you can sell Garnacho for 60 million,
Yeah. Do they take, is it, a position where, like you said, he tries hard, he is committed, but, stylistically, and this is my situation as well in terms of the formation, you linked to it perfectly. Southampton coming out wide. The Ipswich game, I think he started his first game under Amorim. He was coming out wide quite a lot. Arsenal away, I felt the same thing. And it just frustrates me because I know that he doesn't mean to do it, but it's so programmed into it. It's like muscle memory. And I look at this formation, Man United are playing with the 2 10s at the moment. And you look at Ahmad and you think technically he's so sound, tightened pockets, very good at holding and retaining the ball. Garnacho is very much an instinct player, same as Theo Walcott, Marcus Rashford, Darwin Núñez. When they need to be tactically acute and astute in them little areas and knowing when to track back, when to push inside and go out wide, I feel like he is struggling at the moment and he wants to make it work. But for me as a United fan, how I look at it, and I'm not speaking for every Man United fan, of course, but it's like, right, Garnacho, I don't have hatred towards him. I don't dislike him as a person. I think he really wants to try. But in terms of me and seeing my club progress, if Man United got 60 million for a Garnacho, could I see as an upgrade, for example, just throw a name out there, like a Matthias Cunha, who might be 70 million from Wolves in the summer? Could I see someone like him come into the club who's naturally can play in them sort of inside channels and we look like a different side, or we look better in their moments and attacking transitions? Yes. So I'm like, I would rather Man United take the 60 million, unfortunately, if that's what Chelsea or Napoli are offering, and see Manchester United improve in the number 10 area, which is what Amorim wants his players to do. Playing in number 10, wants more naturals. I think we have to, but I don't know if we will with 3 days to go.
I think there is pressure to get Amorim a wing back, at least one. You're not going to get two. And the way I look at Man United is I don't actually think that team is as bad as it looks in the table right now. Okay. I think if you really invested in Ahmad and Bruno as your number 10s, those number 10, those as number 10s that are good enough to be right up there. Yep. You need another striker. There's no doubt about that. You need fresh wing backs on both sides.
100%.
Those are key. That back three, I think, is more than fine for me. I think De Ligt, Maguire, Martinez are good. Okay, Yoro. They're not perfect. Yeah, they're not perfect. Yoro is going to come into his own more and more. Mazraoui could also slot in the back three, and he's comfortable technically. Again, I'm not a big fan of Mazraoui as a wing back, but I like Mazraoui as a right centre back.
Agreed.
Again, though, you're really looking at Yoro to come in there, and I think it's quite good they're easing him in because you've seen him have very tough games. Chris Wood, I remember watching him against Nottingham Forest at Old Trafford. That was a real brutal education that for Lenny Yoro, but he's young and he's got high potential, and it's good. They're managing him well, which is, in a way, I think they managed Ahmad quite well, even though Ten Hag took quite a bit of criticism. I think you're reaping the rewards of that careful management now. But I look at Ahmad and Bruno as my number 10s. Yes, you could go and spend like a 70 million on a Cunha or something like that. I just think money is better distributed elsewhere, and they need money, so they need to sell. And who are United's sellable assets? Well, Garnacho, Ahmad, who's just signed a contract. There's no way in hell he gets sold. Kobbie Mainoo, no one really wants to see him sold. And outside of that, do you have many sort of players that people are knocking the door down to buy? You're struggling, and that is a damning indictment on Man United anyway. But it means that someone's got to go if you want to go and get a Dorgu or, I mean, even at number 10, I think someone like a João Felix would really fit the system, even though he's not.
I've said this to people, and they've not agreed.
I think João Felix would be,
I feel like he's in a bit of a Rafi situation where he just needs the club to love him, put his arm around his shoulder and say, look, I know what you can do.
Right. So, there are options, but I think, look, if you want to get a number 9, which United badly need, look at the situation. Is it 37 Premier League games without a goal now for Rasmus Højlund, or 37 Premier League starts without a goal? Yeah, that's really worrying for someone, and I've defended Højlund quite a lot. Xerxes, got humiliated and deserves credit for bouncing back from the Newcastle sort of humiliation. But again, without a number 9, you're not going anywhere, and United cannot afford to get one without selling somebody. So, as I think they're in a position where a couple of days to go, will Garnacho go? Ultimately, I think he will before the end of the window.
Wow, big statement there. Guys, make sure you like and subscribing. Garnacho, a few days to go. Obviously, Napoli and Chelsea looks like the most likely destinations. But what you're clearly saying, Nathan, is if Garnacho does not leave Manchester United Football Club, there will be no signings at Manchester United Football Club. And if Man United are looking at Alvaro Fernandez, who we'll touch on now, Dorgu from Lecce, Garnacho has to leave. So, reports are saying that we're pushing on with links with Patrick Dorgu, obviously another bid, which I believe would be the third bid, if reports are correct. If not, Alvaro Fernandez could be the plan B. We let go to Benfica, but, starting games at the moment, impressing in a tight league, which is Porto, Sporting Lisbon and Benfica at the moment. We want the wing back. We need it. Dalot, Mazraoui, they're good players in their own rights, but they're not natural wing backs. It feels like you're playing with more 5 defenders rather than 3 defenders and actually having attackers in that final third. United are not creating, we're not scoring goals. Dorgu is a young profile, but he's got the athleticism, he's got the speed, and he's quite robust in terms of 1v1 in them duels. You'll believe that he can get the better of his opponent. Patrick Dorgu, it looks like he's the main target for Manchester United. A few days to go. Like you said, Garnacho has to leave for Dorgu to come in. Do you think Dorgu will be a Manchester United player come the end of this week?
Oh, it's a good question. I mean, there is no secret about the fact that he is the main target. I think that will be I think it'll just be one in and one out. I think it'll be a Garnacho out. Maybe they get a striker on loan. Not fully sure who that is. Okay. Somebody like again, I've had no indication that this is on Man United's radar, but an Evan Ferguson on loan just for 6 months. Is that in Brighton's interest? I mean, Brighton are at a different end of the table to Man United and are pushing for Europe. And Evan Ferguson, would probably go in and play. There are other, obviously, options across the continent, but they need a wing back because you looked at that game against Fulham and only one fullback there on the entire pitch looked like they were capable of attacking, and neither of them were wearing red. So Anthony Robinson, I thought, looked like the only one who was able to go past halfway and be effective. Yeah. Mazraoui, good player. I think he's been a solid buy for United, but doesn't look comfortable at left wing back. It's hard to blame him. Malacia, Malacia's still getting up to speed. I watched him make his comeback at Huddersfield for the under-21s, and that was a great moment for him, but tough watch. Again, saw the galling display against Bodo Glimt. Hard to be overly critical because he was out for so long. Luke Shaw is coming back in, but just not reliable. As good a player as he is, he's not reliable. Yeah. And you need a workhorse. You need someone who can play wing back, who's got legs, who's a young player that has the potential to have resale value. Because that's key for Ineos. They want young players. They want players to appreciate in value. Because too many players Man United sign depreciate in value. And I understand United are buying players at the top end, 60, 70 million. It's very difficult for them to, improve on that in terms of the value. But the rate at which Man United signings lose value is terrifying, really. If you're Ineos, they lose value. Seems like the minute the ink's dry, they've lost 10 million on the value. I don't know what it is. It's so incredible. I've never known anything like it. It's incredible. Yeah. To answer your original question, do I think Dorgu? I think they will get Dorgu because I think they have to get a wing back this month. Yeah. Just to, you have to back Amorim really, and the moves that will be made is Rashford has to leave on loan. Yeah. You get him a wing back, and to get that, you might have to say bye bye to Garnacho, which I think is tough. But even Amorim said, "Look, I don't know what the future holds." He didn't say there is no way.
He didn't come out fully back the situation.
So look, he knows what's going on, and he needs a lot. Like I said, he needs 2 wing backs. He needs a striker, and this will be more towards the summer. But this season it still has a chance of doing something. You still got the FA Cup. You still got the Europa League. But you're going nowhere when you've got 5 defenders out there all the time. So I think they will get Dorgu. I think they'll strike a deal there.
Okay, that would be good. I think even watching United, it is a struggle in them wide situation. I think it's integral. We've seen, Coenda, very, very young, bright spark at Sporting Lisbon. I think they have Araujo, who plays sometimes on the left-hand side. They like their young, dynamic players. And I think it's essential. I think when you look at what Man United need, it is essential we get wing backs. You look at the midfield situation, Casemiro and Eriksen still at the football club, probably likely now to stay, unless Casemiro makes a late move to maybe Saudi. I know Talisca's gone to Fenerbahce. Can't see that maybe happening. Casemiro probably likely to stay until the summer alongside Eriksen.
Yeah, I can't see either of those going at. On the Eriksen point of view, I'm sure United would love to sell, generate some funds, but why any team would do that when he's just, probably, and he's okay playing a bit part role he can come on and do okay for you in games. He's far from a starter, but he can give you 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and with minimal fuss behind the scenes. And Casemiro, the top earner being phased out, I think he's one that's very tricky to move. But he's another that I think they'll just keep around for depth at this point, and it's up to Mainu, it's up to Collier, who's done really well of
Yeah,
late. It's
he's
up to
actually done well with his cameos.
Ugarte.
Yeah,
They're your first three, and you've also seen that he's willing to play Bruno deeper. So there's four. I
yeah,
would then say probably Ericsson. There's five, and so that you're 5 players ahead of Casemiro. So I
yeah.
wouldn't expect he's going to be doing much
Doing much.
sort of pitch work anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. And it is going to be interesting as well because before we just go on to Ineos and Amorim himself, we'll just touch on the summer because I think, like you said, getting a wing back is imperative this summer. I'm sorry, this January. So probably one in with likely Garnacho or Rashford will have to leave the football club for someone to come in. You look at then like the midfield we said with Casemiro and Ericsson leaving in the summer, it leaves you a bit like with Cobby, who for me, I like Cobby. I really think he's got good potential, but I've always felt he suits a 3-man midfield rather than a pivot because he doesn't have the legs to get up and down the football pitch. And I feel like it's showing his flaws rather than his actual positive attributes at the moment in this formation. Hopefully it improves over time, but that's my analysis. You've got Bruno who can drop in there. Ugarte, who's great at winning the ball back, but of course on the ball, pretty safe. I think Man United is imperative that we go in for midfielders that are combative in that middle of the park. Edison's the type of player like Atalanta who can play in a pivot. You've got the striker market that we need. Maybe someone that can play in the 10. Centre backs is the only positions that at the moment I agree with you, Nathan. I think we're solid. When you look at the summer and asking a general question for Man United fans out there, yes, one might come in January, but looking in the summer and having Amorim ready for next season, his first full season, full training, pre-season, are Man United going to have the funds? Are they going to be able to back Amorim to get maybe 4 or 5 top-class players in that can make a difference at this football club because they need it?
5 top class players it feels a bit greedy. I'll be honest in
Yeah,
this kind of market.
3 then at best.
Look, that's what you need. If you can get three starting caliber players, that is going to require you to move on from Anthony. Now they've struck a great deal there. Real Betis paying 84% of his wages. I mean that's a miracle. Congratulations to Man United. They pulled off a blinder there. You do need to move on from people like Casemiro, get his 350 grand a week wages gone. And you get players in on a much more modest. I say modest. They're still going to be earning 6 figures a week, 150. Modest.
Yeah.
The game has gone when I'm saying that, isn't it? Modest.
Yeah.
But look. They need to get starting caliber wing backs and a number 9 because, like I say, I think you've got your centre backs. I think you've got your 10s. I understand what you're saying. The middle of the park
that stands out to you though, Nathan, because I'm probably similar age to you. So we know similar people. I look at the era we grew up on. I'm gonna call them strikers now.
Right.
You got players like Kola Mawani's, Gyökeres. No, not discrediting them. They're good at what they kind of do, but they're not standouts. Goncalo Ramos went to PSG, not quite working out. I'm talking to players that we look at strikers now. Other than Alexander Isaac, Haaland, the rest are all in that sort of bracket. Is there 2 or 3 names that come out to you other than Gyökeres that Man United could go for?
It's really tricky because the flip side is, when we were younger, you would always say Man United was the team that you would go to, maybe Man United or Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's, I think you've got tons of options in terms of, these players that you're all going for very, very similar players. I would say having watched Gyökeres live, phenomenal talent. There's that story that Man United were offered him when he was at Coventry, but just not the type of move Man United make. They don't go for these sort of below the radar gems, so to speak. I watch a lot of EFL football. There are good players there. Look at the lad, is it Romain Essa, who's gone to Palace, who scored the other day from Millwall. There's just not the type of move Man United make, unfortunately. There aren't a load of strikers that scream out to you, are there? That is the issue, and I think top clubs are. That's why missing out on Harry Kane was such a whiff, really, because you spent 72 million on Højlund. Could you actually have got Kane? That is a debate I've had 10 times over with, mutuals that we've got. That could you actually have got him? But a Sesko, a Schick, there are players that they're okay. But look, it's about building out the system. I think build it and they will come. In the sense of if you get wing backs that are that are an attacking threat. Because look, Bruno and Ahmad can get you double digits in goals a season. They could
Yep,
both
I
go.
agree.
They could
Yeah.
both get you, for a basketball phrase, a double in terms of goals and
Yeah,
assists every
yeah, yeah,
season. And a
yeah,
number 9. So if you had a number 9 that did similar, because it might be that you can have. I've seen Bruno play a number, false 9 before. That fluidity can sometimes
yeah.
work. I look at Liverpool, and you look at Diaz, and
Luis
so
Diaz.
they're all, they're
Yeah,
constantly moving around, these kind of players. So the era we grew up on, mate, you're looking at like a Ruud van Nistelrooy or a Drogba, or
mm,
these like really
mm,
archetypal, typical strikers. They're few and far between now. They really
yeah. It's
are,
really changed.
and
Yeah, it
it's
has
it's
changed.
a change. So, but getting a number 9, because a season or two ago, people would have said, "Get me Victor Osimhen." He's now
Yeah,
gone to Turkey, and I think people are a
yeah,
bit more hot and cold on him.
yeah.
If you had the chance to get Ivan Toney, I know he's been over in Saudi. Would you take Ivan Toney if he came back? So
Yeah, they all come with. Do you
look,
know what it is for me, Nathan? And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's building around the system, but all strikers at the moment, other than probably Alexander Isaac, come with a question mark. I'm going to do a video on it, but I think Isaac's the perfect Barcelona striker for a replacement for Lewandowski, the way he plays. But that's for another day. But Alexander Isaac, I think other than him, a lot of them come with question marks. And it's like, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. Guys, make sure you are liking this video. Make sure you're subscribing. Great video so far. Half an hour has flown by. We're just going to touch on a couple other bits. In terms of Ruben Amorim himself, what have you made of Ruben Amorim in terms of himself, his methods? And, do you feel like he's the long-term manager now at United?
very impressed. Yeah, I've been very, very impressed. I think he, obviously bristles at the amount of media work he has to do. I think as well. I think he arrived a little bit nervous in terms of just the scale of the job, but I do think he's settled into it now. You can see with some of these recent press conferences, he's kind of got that I'm him sort of swagger.
Yeah.
The fact
Yeah,
that
yeah,
he can just dictate these headlines, and he knows what he's doing now. Is I think before he'd come out of press conferences and it felt like he wasn't saying a great deal. He maybe wasn't speaking his mind.
okay.
Bit by bit, I think he's sort of really, really settled in now. He's moved out of the Larry Hotel. He's got a house now. His family's there. Just feels more like himself. And
Mm,
to read these question marks over his future, and from various places, I just think it's absolutely crazy. I wouldn't even be entertaining that conversation until the end of next season. I wouldn't even be on my radar. You drag this guy out of Sporting mid-season with a sort of now or never type ultimatum, which you can debate if you want whether that should even have been given. Should he have been allowed to finish the season? Would you have just written this season off and gone with Ruud van Nistelrooy, or whatever the case may be? Anyway, they drag him here and they say, we want what you've done. So he took on a sporting project that lacked any sort of identity, and it was a losing project, and he transformed them into title contenders. You're going to get, you'll get all the people that say, well, that's Portuguese football. It's a different beast here. Sure, but, at the start of the season, if I'd have said to you Manchester City would be as bad as they are, and Chelsea will be hit and miss, and Bournemouth will be one of the
mm,
top teams in the league. Before a ball was kicked, you'd have gone, "Oh, we've got a chance
yeah.
here." Then
So unpredictable.
this is the chance,
Yeah.
and really that chance has been wasted by poor planning, and sticking with Ten Hag when they did, and you've got Amorim mid-season. He hasn't been able to buy any of his own players yet, so many moving parts. But what I will say, to just touch on something that I think is very important, and I've been staunch on this in various group chats and various meetings with other reporters that cover Man United, is I do think that missing out on Europe would be a blessing in disguise for Man United.
Think
Altogether,
alike.
I do think that, okay, look, if you've got the opportunity to win the Europa League, win the Europa League. That's a great achievement. Winning breeds confidence, and that would get you into the Champions League. But if that isn't to happen, and I don't necessarily think it will, just
Yep.
that performance against Rangers again, the
Yep.
performance against Pauk, Bodo Glimt. I know Pauk was before
It's just
Amorim
not
came in, but
consistent. Not
it's
consistent at all.
just
Yeah.
not consistent. And I do think there are teams that are just blowing through teams, and Man United don't look like they're doing that. Who knows? They
Yeah.
might peak at the right time, but Amorim is so big on his training, and having been to a few open trainings where I know we're only seeing the rondo and a tiny, tiny bit of work before he gets into his tactical stuff. You do look at people like Adelio Candido, you do look at Carlos Fernandez, Ruben Amorim. They are obsessed with coaching.
Wow.
And I think that
Okay.
is key to what Ineos wanted. They wanted a coach. They
Yeah, a
wanted,
coach.
they wanted
Longevity.
a self-improvement, someone to get more out of what they've got. You need more out of Hoyland. You need more out of Mainu. You need more
Yep.
out of a Ugarte or an Ahmad, and certain players we're seeing that now, and others it'll take a bit longer. But I do think missing out on Europe, as damaging as it would be commercially, because these contracts with Adidas are laced with caveats of you lose this and you lose that if you don't get into European football. I think one step back to go maybe two steps forward is what that would give you.
Time on the training pitch as well. He said it, a few weeks ago. I've only had 4 proper training sessions. A lot of it is recovery. But what I think I liked about Amorim as well, the way he speaks, like you said, the way he conducts himself, I think it's getting better every time. But I think what's important for me in showing that I can back him as a long-term manager is, yes, we've not played great in some games that you think on paper we win at home. Nottingham Forest, Newcastle, Southampton we struggled with and got over the line. There have been some poor results, but to go to Liverpool, the way they've played, the best team in the world, you'd say on form at the moment, get a draw. Go to Arsenal and knock them out of the cup. Go to City and win. The players can get out for them big games, like you said, but it shows that he can deliver his message and the players can step up when it's needed. Now it's about, winning them games where, you should be winning, getting the training and the message across, getting your players in. And I do feel like there's a real good coach there. And, I've always said since Ferguson's left, I was really happy when Ten Hag came in. I was actually a Ten Hag fan before he arrived. I actually feel like since Ferguson's left, Amorim is that manager that I'm like, do you know what I really do like? I've never been a fan of Mourinho personally. Rangnick was obviously a short spell. Oli, I like the attachment of, we played Martial, Rashford and, Greenwood together. But in terms of like the culture, I feel like sustainable, long-term, man management skills are good. He's very, I say he's more up to date with today's society. I think Amorim's a guy we've got a back, and I really hope it does work out for him, Nathan.
The way I look at it, the tail has wagged the dog at Man United for way too long with the players. Yeah. And in fairness, I was a staunch defender of Erik Ten Hag for full transparency. I think he deserved a lot of credit for the way he was able to get rid of Ronaldo, and for what and he deserves credit for winning the FA Cup. Whatever you think about that performance, it was still beating Manchester City in the FA Cup. But the problem with Ten Hag is he ended up compromising on his principles. Yeah. And I think even in that short spell with Ralf Rangnick, when he wanted to play that 4-2-2-2, he played it for 45 minutes and then realised the players were gassed and he abandoned it. Yeah. And so I do think that if it does in years to come go wrong for Amorim, it won't be because he's compromised on his idea. He would rather fall on the sword. And I think that is a good trait to have. I think, he's got his idea, got his way of playing. You've heard plenty of noise about this back three doesn't work. I don't like the back three. We're not getting results. And he's going, we're going to stick at it. Because right now, he's delivered in the trench games. When they're in the trenches at Arsenal, down to 10 men, at Liverpool, when you're really up against it at Anfield, away in the derby at Man City, in those big games, he's shown you that he can coach a team to be compact and dig in. The problem is, when in games where they need to be more attacking and more creative, they haven't got the personnel right now to feel comfortable enough. I think it's the comfortability in his system to be because they're so locked on where they need to be and they're trying to learn. So this is going to come down to a training pitch. This is going to come down to a full pre-season. This is going to go into next season. And next season, we'll see where we are. Let's get him a couple of his own players. And because right now, it's almost like when Ineos came in and they did their audit of just what are the conditions, how are things. I sort of think, okay, it's not exactly the same, but Amorim is essentially doing his own audit. Who am I going to be able to rely on? Who am I not? You look at Maguire, new lease of life under Amorim now.
Smart move, renew him for a year. It gives us time to get other options. Yep.
Exactly. Ugarte was looking a bit ropey on under Ten Hag.
Yep.
Now looks a lot better under Amorim. He's worked with him before. Mazraoui, we don't know what the future of him. Ahmad's now become a mainstay. Bruno obviously was going to be a key part, but again, he could do with locking down the positions that are moving back and forth. There's a lot of pressure on Højlund and Xerxes. Can any of them prove in the final few months? So consider this an Amorim audit. For me, whatever happens this season, I'm not holding him too much responsible because you've got to stick with the idea. You'd be better served sticking with the 3-4-2-1, 3-4-3 now and going through the growing pains to get to the summer and players will have had months of exposure to it than going, you know what, we'll just try and get to the season, get some results, finish 10th and try to win the Europa League by going with a back four because it's not going to serve you well in the long run. So you may as well stick at it. And the growing pains will hurt like hell, man, for people like you that are fans and I'm watching these performances, and like I say, I'm not a Man United fan, but I do cover them a
Yeah.
lot. And you're watching that game against Southampton and going, oof, Suleiman has got, Lenny Yoro on
Yeah.
toast here, and there's no right wing back help, and you feel helpless for this guy and other games you think, wow, how's this happened? And Ahmad comes up with the hat trick. You're watching that game against Fulham and you're thinking, wow, your friends of mine saying they turned it off before the end, more for them because they ended up missing that Martinez goal. But
Yeah.
it was so difficult to be inspired by that. I know they
Yeah, it
ended up
was.
going
I
on to
think that
win
was the
it,
only
but
shot on, that was the only shot on target.
yeah,
Perfect
it's
example.
so hard to, but you've just got to grit your teeth for a bit.
Yeah.
I know Man United fans keep telling me they've done that for a while now.
Yeah.
You just got to do a bit
But
longer.
I'm with you, Nathan. We've got to get through it. And, like you said, the storm and the sun will hopefully, in football, you never know, shine. Yeah. No, I completely agree. On that note, that is a perfect way to wrap up. That's been brilliant. I really enjoyed that discussion, actually. Very, very good points. I hope people that are watching have really enjoyed this. Let us, read your comments, get your comments in. I will respond. Like the video, most importantly. Subscribe if you're new. It's good to be back on my own channel now and bringing content like this proper football conversations that people can hopefully enjoy. Whether you're driving, whether you're at home, whether you're making your dinner, we're for the people. So I hope you guys enjoy this content. And Nathan, first of all, thank you ever so much for coming on. You've been a pleasure. Hopefully I can get you on again over the summer transfer window, maybe even before the end of the season, the little recap. But just tell the people where they can find your stuff and whatnot.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously all the social medias, Nath1 on Twitter. That's probably on X. That's probably the one I use the most. Or I do a lot of coverage of the academy over on TikTok. So if you're interested in seeing compilations of academy games in terms of players to watch out for over there, they've been a real success. So I would say TikTok and X for my main sort of content.
Amazing. Perfect, guys. Make sure you go and give him a follow. Great guy, speaks well. And I love it as well because very balanced views. And that's what I like when you're talking football. So, no, brilliant, Nathan. Thank you so much, guys. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe. And I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you on the other side. Thank you.